So Johann Andersen, head of the travel lab at the University of Stellenbosch, South Africa. Welcome. Could you tell us how does the South African experience in ITS systems would be relevant to the traffic challenges found here in the Gulf region?
Yeah, I think to start out answering that question, I think quite often, well, in South Africa it was the case where we did not have many legacy systems in ITS. And I think in the Gulf region, I think it could be similar, that you don't have too many legacy systems. You can actually, to a large extent, utilize the best of what's available currently in the world. And quite often, you can actually then deploy the technology much more efficient, and hopefully also, also learn from experiences across the world and actually get it right, at the first try.
So would you compare that to the Gulf region, that they also don't have these legacy systems in place, so that they could make this technology leap, as it were?
I think that's quite possible. I have seen some ITS systems, and I've been in regions within the Gulf, where there are some ITS systems. But I do think that that quite often you can actually use, for example, communication systems. You don't sit with landline, or a lot of other sort of means of communication. That would quite often you actually have to completely sort of overhaul. So yes, I think it is quite possible that there are some links, and there are sort of similarities in actually deploying ITS, between South Africa and the Gulf region.
So I just attended the session in cooperation with ITS South Africa and IRF, of course. Was very interesting. I was wondering, with regards to what you were presenting, what advice would you give to other emerging economies with regards to education and training in the field of ITS?
I think first of all you have to create general awareness of ITS. Quite often you find service providers that actually have a product to sell, and they focus on actually selling the product instead of actually fixing a specific transportation problem. So I think it's critical that you actually have an awareness of how to actually deploy ITS, and that there's sort of a systematic approach in which you actually implement ITS systems, which means that as a country that does not have many ITS systems in place, that you have to go through a process of properly understanding your needs and making sure that the technology that you actually then in the end procure addresses those very special needs that you might have in your country.
Well, you just mentioned that private providers have a product to sell, which I'm sure you can hardly blame them. But you also mentioned your work with the Travel Lab, and you said that collaboration and partnership with the private sector was important. So how would you put this together, let's say, in your perspective?
I think what is important is that from a research and development perspective, that the academic sector also plays a role to assist the industry in actually addressing very sort of specific industry needs. So there's that partnership that we would like to actually see happening. But I think it's also important for the private sector that universities actually produce individuals that understand also their environment, so, and that from an academic perspective, that we also make sure that we have as a product, engineers, technicians, guys in the industry that actually understand the ITS environment. I think that's a critical need, I think, in South Africa, is that, currently there are some programs at Stellenbosch University, but I think outside of the very formalized environment, you learn on the job. You know, so we want to actually expand the sustainability of the industry by providing, you know, a lot of individuals that have gone through proper training or through proper sort of education that understands the ITS environment, and in that way also assists, you know, also the service providers in actually selling their products ultimately.
No, and I want to develop a little bit further on this. You said that education and training, you said in the session that it was a mid to long-term solution. You wouldn't see any immediate effect. So how would you then bridge that gap of the necessary immediate effects and the awareness that needs to be raised with both, I guess, policymakers and the general public who has to also buy into the concept of ITS?
What we're trying to do is to actually provide courses or even one-day workshops where we invite role players in the public sector and you know basically just to create that additional awareness, you know, talk about processes, talking about what needs to be in place to ensure sustainable ITS deployment. So I think in the short term, you know, it's well, I think it's you know, one of the few things that you can do is to create these opportunities to actually get to your decision makers, because ultimately, you know, if they make the wrong decisions, you know, that will also influence ITS deployment, you know, for the years to come.
Okay, well, Johann Andersen, the head of the travel lab at the University of Stellenbosch, South Africa. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.